Good. Starting up, baby. Okay, yesterday I tried to do my usual Sunday live at 5, but I experienced technical difficulties right when I was getting to the good part. Oh, that was annoying. So I'm going to try to redo it right now. And I'm sweating like a pig and breathing like a brontosaurus. I don't know how brontosauruses actually breathe, but because I just did morning exercises. It went well, feeling strong, exhausted, but feeling good. Okay, so here's what I meant to say yesterday before getting cut off by technical difficulties. I'll probably give the briefer version. So last week, someone asked me this question, and I didn't really have a very good answer for it. I said a lot of I don't knows, I was thinking about it, but the question was basically, hey, Jaimie, why do most people get stuck in just doing the same thing every day, you know, running on the hamster mill, doing what's expected of them and what they're told. But then a few people have something going on where they can go off and forge their own path, you know, like I'm an example, like moving to this private island and, you know, homesteading and doing all this weird inventions and stuff. Why can people like you and other people who have some kind of attributes, like, well, what is it that makes it so they can go off on their own and not be stuck in the everyday grind like everyone else? And I guess I just had it in the back of my mind all week because yesterday morning, I was thinking about something totally unrelated and I was like, oh, that's the answer to that guy's question last week. And the short answer is strength. But that doesn't cover it all. We're gonna have to explain. And strength, by the way, of course, is one of the 8 virtues or principles in the adventure builder philosophy. And I consider myself to be an adventure builder, and strength is important. And I was just doing some exercise to get strong, and that's why I'm sweating like a pig, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. Okay, so what am I talking about here? Let's back up a little bit. This is something I learned when I was a little kid. And it's something I learned from video games. Because, you know, my parents were divorced and I was just busy doing other stuff. So I spent a lot of time by myself. And I played video games. And I learned a lot of stuff from video games. You know, different kinds of video games. But role-playing games specifically. You know, RPGs where you're playing like some kind of like Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. You know, fighting monsters, getting stronger. And it would like put me in a lot of situations where I'd have to think about it. And these situations would have parallels in real life. So the first video game I really played, like I really got into, not just like a 5-minute thing, but like I played this for like, I don't know, years, you know, in free time now and then, not all the time. And the game is called Ultima 3, and there's this whole series of Ultima games. The Ultima 3 is where I started. And in this game, it's a turn-based game. So you do one turn, then the monsters do a turn, then you do a turn, the monsters or the world does a turn, whatever. And it was back when the graphics weren't very good. Well, I mean, actually, I think the graphics were amazing, but, you know, not realistic at all. They were, you know, real pixely. There were only 4 colors in this game, and it was only like a couple megabytes. So there wasn't a lot on the screen to... Mr. Landfill loved Ultima. Yeah, Ultima is awesome. Anyway, let me get to that. So there wasn't a lot on the screen. Like there's enough to tell you what is happening, but there's no visuals to make it for you. So you make the visuals in your own head, kind of like when you're reading a book. And this is something that's largely lost in modern video game experience because you get so much on the screen, you end up looking at that and not imagining it in your head. Kids today are losing that ability to imagine things in their head. But anyway. So I would get really into these games because I'd see the little stick figure that was me and my party and little grass that was a few dots. And there was, you know, it was really basic information to tell me what was happening, but I had to make up the scenes in my head. So I got really immersed, just like when you're reading a book and you get really into it, right? Now, there were 3 basic areas in this video game, Ultima 3, Exodus. There's the main outer world, you know, just the surface of the world, which is where you start. And in that area, you get a map with the game. So you know the basic layout of the place. And if monsters are coming after you, you can see them coming across the screen and you can be like, oh, I either want to run away, or maybe I want to fight them, or maybe I want to do some preparation before they get here. Like you can see there are dangers, but there aren't that many, and you can see them coming, right? And then there's the towns. The towns and the castles are like safe places. You go in there, nothing's going to kill you unless you instigate. But you can go in there and heal, and they're safe places. And then there are the dungeons, and you go into the dungeons. And the dungeons are scary. I was terrified. When I was a little kid, I was terrified to go in these dungeons because I was imagining I was actually in this world, right? Now, in the outer world, you can save your game anywhere. But in the dungeons, you can't save your game. So you go in that dungeon, you could play for 3 hours and die. And that was it. You lost the whole 3 hours. Plus, it was like terrifying to be in the dungeon when you're like down a few levels and you get poisoned and you don't have any way to fix the poison. You got to somehow fight your way out of the dungeon while you're slowly dying and try to get back to some healing place. Oh, the dungeons were brutal. Plus, you couldn't see monsters coming. You were just in the battle instantly. Like you'd be walking around, and when you see the monster, it means you are in a battle. Plus, you can't see anything unless you have a lit torch. And these torches run out. So you got to carry a whole bunch of torches with you because you could go through like 20 torches in a big dungeon adventure, right? So the dungeons were like all unknowns. You don't know what's there. There's no maps. You can't see unless you have a thing. There's a time limit constantly chomping at you. Monsters will come at you anytime, anywhere. You don't know it's all the unknown. And when I started playing this game, I was so terrified to go into the dungeons. But if you're just walking around on the surface world, there aren't quite enough monsters to really let you get ahead. Because you got to kill a monster or a bunch of monsters, take their gold, and then you can go buy food. But with the number of monsters that are out on the surface area, there's barely enough to keep up with how much food you eat just walking around killing these monsters. So you're barely scraping by. You're barely scraping by if you're just walking around in the outer world. To get ahead, you got to go into the dungeons. So to go into these dungeons, like you got to prepare all the stuff and get ready and get as many potions and stuff as you can. Someone said can't level grind in town. You can actually level grind in town, but it means killing innocent people. But that's a separate story. We're not going to get into that. Anyway, you got to get like, there are these sands that you can get, and if you use them, they're kind of expensive, but you use them, it freezes time. So it's like a last ditch effort. You can use one of these expensive time freezing things. It'll freeze the world for like a little bit, and you can get through a fight, but it's expensive, and you end up losing more gold than you get. But maybe you can get out. So you got to buy a bunch of that kind of stuff and get armored up as much as you can and take lots of food because you don't know how long you're going to be in there, and get lots of torches. And you got to get really, really prepared before you go into these dungeons. And that's just to go into like the first level, But then as I'm playing the game, my guys are fighting, they're working, they're getting stronger. They're gaining more experience and they're getting better at everything. The magic guys are getting more magic, and now suddenly one of them has the cure spell, which cures poison. And it's like, whoa, now I don't have to run away if I get poisoned. I have a way to fix it. I have some skill that can deal with this. And your fighters get stronger and better weapons and better armor, and you guys get stronger. And as time goes by and your guys get stronger, you need less preparation to do more in the dungeon. And eventually you get to a point where you can just waltz right into the dungeon, go right down to the bottom level, and get the important stuff you need to finish the game and all the piles of gold and whatever. You can just march right down there because your guys are strong enough, they have enough skills, they can handle it. They have the strength to handle it. Now this is I didn't know it at the time, but this is real life. The surface world is just the everyday grind, the 9-to-5 job where you just feel like you're running on a treadmill, barely scraping by. You can barely make your rent, you can barely pay for all that. You can barely live the life you're expected to live if you do all the stuff you're expected to do. You go to school, you get a job, you do this and you buy that, and you do all the stuff you're supposed to do. You're barely scraping by, right? Just like on the surface world. But if you want to get ahead, just like in this video game where you got to go into the dungeons and it's scary, you got to go off-roading, man. You got to start following some other path that not everyone is on. You got to figure out what your own path is even. Like go inside your head, turn off all the TVs and the radios and the internet, and just spend a week just by yourself. Focus on just what the hell you are and what you want to do with your life, and figure out what you want to do, and figure out some path that you can go down that's going to get you ahead in some way, right? But once you figured out that path, you can't just go down that path unless you have sufficient strength to do it. Because if you try to go down some unknown path, and I'll use myself as an example. At one point in time, I was working jobs and they were like boring. I was getting nowhere, just kind of scraping by. And I was like, you know what? I could start my own contracting business and start repairing houses. But that's risky and it's scary and it's a lot of work. I'm going to need a lot of mental skill. I'm going to need a lot of stamina. It's scary to take a chance on yourself and tell these people, if you pay me this much money, I can do this work and accomplish this for you. And then you're obligated, and it's scary to do that. But I knew I had the skills, and I knew I had the strength and the stamina, because I'd spent years when I was a kid doing sports. And I started doing sports largely because of these video games. I would see my characters in the video games getting stronger and being able to handle more. So I started exercising myself and started practicing my mind and my body and just getting stronger, right? And then when I started doing sports, this wasn't something like I told people about, but I never cared about the trophies or the medals or anything like that. And I won piles of trophies and medals. I didn't care about any of that. What I cared about was getting stronger. I cared about the training much more than the competitions, because I knew the exercise would make me stronger for the future. And that way, when the coaches said, "Oh, you got to keep going through the injuries," I could realize, no, don't. This is a good tip for anyone doing sports. No injury is worth it. No injury is worth some stupid medal. So don't hurt yourself to win some stupid medal. Take the exercise, take the strength and the experience, and make yourself strong. Give yourself endurance. Make yourself strong mentally and physically, because that is what's going to be useful in the future. But anyway, so I started doing this job, and I would work like 12, 14-hour days, nonstop, skip lunch, just going hard, because I knew if I could do the job in half the time other people could do it, I would make twice as much money, right? And then I started saving money. And then at some point I bought land, and I could go out and live in the forest, which again was scary, because like there's no house there. There's nowhere for me to go. There's no town. There isn't even this is just totally going into the unknown. It's totally going into the dungeon, right? It's going into one of the deep, dark dungeons. I don't know what's there. It's scary. I don't know if I can handle it, but I knew that I could handle several days without sleep. I knew I could handle several days without food. I knew I could work like 24 hours a day for a few days in a row if I need to. I knew that I could sleep in the cold if I have to. I knew that I could handle it because I had sufficient strength. I knew I could handle a lot. It doesn't guarantee success, but it means I can handle a lot of problems. And so I went out there and spent a bunch of time, just camping. I spent the first month just camping and chilling out and just, experiencing life for the first time, really. And then I started working, and I worked so hard. And there were days when I would just work from before the sun came up till after the sun went down, and I'd eat in the morning, and I'd snack on garbage, and then eat in the evening, and then the next day I was just working all the time, but I knew I could handle it, or at least I thought I could handle it. And if I kept doing it, I would just keep getting stronger and keep going. And that's the only reason I was able to do all that. And that's the only reason I was able to come here and, build this house and do all this stuff, because I got strong enough. So, I guess there's really two things I'm mentioning there that make it possible for a person to get off the beaten path and take their own path. One, you got to figure out your own path. You got to figure out some path, not just copy someone else's path, but figure out your path. And it doesn't mean it won't be the path someone else has done. Maybe it will be, but you got to really think about it to yourself. Like, what do I really want to do? What do I care about? What do I think is going to be worthwhile to do in the world? And then you have to get sufficient strength to do it. And that strength comes in the form of just physical strength, endurance, mental strength, skills. You just have to get strong enough to give yourself a fighting chance. And the stronger you can get, the better chance you have success. And that's the answer to the question. All right, let me just see what you guys are talking about. Hopefully that was a reasonable answer. Yeah. Hi, Jaimie. Hello, Hart. Bonjour du Canada. Yeah, I grew up in Canada, not in the French part though. Right next to the French part in Ontario. Haro. Oh wait, are you saying haro or are you saying hero? I'm gonna say haro to my Japanese friend. Oh man. Hello, Jaimie. Okay, loved Ultima. Did you ever try Ultima Online? I did play Ultima Online a little bit, but I didn't get past the the free month trial, I think it was. Because I don't have that much. I have other stuff to do. Imagination. Got my Ulta Online paid for by mining copper to sell. Morning all. That's cool. So far, aligning well with original strength, valid points. Well, thanks, man. Preparation and skills are needed. They are needed. Can't level grind in town. Yeah. So one of the funny things is in this, this is bright light. The sun's right behind me now. So I was going to mention this real quick. In Ultima 3, you could level grind in town and get gold and everything. And in that game, gold was like everything. But you have to kill like peasants. And there was one town that had 0 guards in it. So you could just go in there and kill people. And when I first started playing the game, that's what I did. I just went into a town and just started murdering people and taking their gold. And I learned a lesson from that too. I was like, this doesn't feel right. This isn't a good thing. This is not really playing the game. I'm copping out. I'm taking the easy way out. Just like if a person was in real life and just started doing something that wasn't valuable, like stealing or, something like that. But anyway, so I restarted the game and I was like, now I'm going to play as a good guy. I'm not going to murder people in the towns. I'm going to try to figure out how to actually get through this. And that was one of the big lessons. So I didn't have to go through that in real life. I didn't have to go through that phase of let me try just doing anything I can, regardless of the moral implications, because I did that in the video game. All right, I'm just going to ignore this light behind me because this is a better angle. Become puissant. I gotta look that word up. On my way to work, building barges. I love melting metal. Oh, that's cool. Building barges. I could use a barge, man. Oh, hit the thumbs up, everyone. Funny. Banana building. Building a road looked tiring. Yeah. So that's another example. So I built a road. The first time I moved off grid, there was no road to my property. So I built a road, like 1.5 miles of road through the mountains. And it was not easy terrain to get a truck through. And I wasn't even sure if I could do it, but I started and I was like, all right, I've got a lot of endurance and I've got a lot of strength. Let me just take my tools and just start going and see how far I can get. And just the perseverance I gained from years of like track and field and swimming and different sports, and then just doing my own exercises and just getting used to following through, made it so I could actually finish that road and got my truck in there, and then I could drive things up to my place, which was pretty cool. Fluger, old wizard spell. Is it Fluger? No, is it Fluger? That sounds like the fifth, the 25 magic points wizard spell that shoots a fireball. Is it Fluger? Anyway, thank you, Jaimie, for your exercise videos. They have been inspiring me to get off my ass and recover from several injuries in the past. Have been holding me back little by little. I'm getting stronger. That's awesome, man. And that's all I need. Like when I started doing those, I was like, no one's going to watch these, because it's just going to be like, 30 seconds of me like looking like crap in the morning and trying to form sentences when I just woke up. But dude, if that's working for you, I'm going to try to keep doing them. It's actually been helping me a little bit too, because like this morning, I would have gotten up either way this morning, but it was just like one more thing. It's like, well, Sean McGuire is waiting for me to make this morning video saying get up and go, so I better do it. So yeah, it's kind of getting me going too. Where is the kids' car? it's up on the hill and it's drivable and the kids drive it and it's real fun actually. It's been in a few videos. Yeah, it's just up there. You can drive it around. Jaimie, have you played Diablo 2? You should play it. I've never played Diablo 2. Well, I don't know. That was one of those games where I was at a friend's place and I played for like a few minutes and, but I haven't really played it. I don't have time to get into new video games now though. Usually if I want to play something, I'll just play some old Nintendo game or like Cave Story or I don't know. If I built a house on a barge wharf and anchored it on a lake outside of a major Canadian city, would the government people eventually come and tell me that I can't live there? Probably. Now, I don't know what the actual rules are in Canada for, but just based on my experience, like look it up, obviously check, but I would say the government's probably going to hassle you. Because one thing I learned about Canada, if you are not doing what everyone else is doing, oh my God, people go crazy. Like not even just the government, like just people, if you don't think the way they think, if you don't say the things they say, if you're not, at least where I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario, if you are not like a liberal socialist, then you get in fights. And in high school, I said I didn't like the healthcare system. I thought I didn't think the universal healthcare system was working. And oh my God, people get so angry, like take serious offense. And I'm just like, dude, this is my opinion. This is what I think. And I have reasons for thinking this, but you don't even want to hear them because you're just screaming at me. Man, Canada is a very socially strict place. But yeah, the government also is very like, don't do anything outside of the normal. I mean, you can do it, things outside of the normal, but like near a major city, you probably have to go further than that. I found the US to have more freedom than Canada, but still pretty strict. Like the United States became more ruly, more strict, and just started having more and more rules at a noticeable level just in the time I was there. And I mean, I lived in the States for like almost 20 years. And yeah, I noticed the rules got tighter and tighter. And every year it was like I could do less and less. People in general could do less. Most people didn't care though, because they're like, well, this rule doesn't affect me. Because only like 1 in 20 rules would affect them personally. So that's the one they would complain about, and everything else, everyone would say, whatever. But if people actually united and got unified, which they're not, and started saying, wait, I don't care if this rule affects me, it could have affected me and it affects my neighbors and it's taking their freedom away. We all need to stand up against this. Then something could happen. Maybe there could be some pushback against this stuff. And actually, I should mention one thing that's pretty cool that's happened in Panama recently. And now I don't know the whole story, so maybe it's not as good as it sounds to me. Maybe I'm missing a bunch of stuff. Oh man, the sun is really blasting me. All right. But the government in Panama sold mining rights to this. It was actually a Canadian mining company, as far as I understand. Sold mining rights to this Canadian company for just a ton of money in this area where the mine is just destroying nature, right? And the Panamanian people didn't want this. They're like, no, we don't want our country destroyed for a bunch of money that's going to go to the government so they can buy nice houses, and we're all left here with just destroyed land and polluted everything. So the people in Panama just shut the country down. And this went on for over a month. You may have seen something about it in the news. Like there were roadblocks all up and down the country, just blocking the roads, shutting down the country. And after something like 34 days or something like that, finally the government was like, all right, we better deal with this. And then the Supreme Court started doing their job and they declared that the mining contract was unconstitutional for whatever reason. I don't know what the details of the Constitution are or whatever the details of the legal thing. But the thing is, just the normal people in Panama got together and stood up against the government that they thought was doing something wrong, and got them to stop doing it, which is awesome. It's really awesome. That is a really cool thing. Let's see. I was saying, hero. Hero. You were talking about the classic hero story. Oh, for some reason I have a hair in my mouth. Okay. The classic hero story. I see. Well, what do you think of converting old metal shipping containers for housing? Oh, sounds great. The shipping containers, there are shipping containers that are not rusty, right? Like ones that are either stainless or aluminum or something. The insulated ones. If I was going to do it, I would want to use those. But that's because I'm in a salty, saltwater environment. I'm in the ocean here. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm on a little island in the ocean. Like, I could get to the ocean in like 10 seconds from right now. That way or that way. But yeah, shipping containers sound like a great building material. Magni says, can't stay long. I've got a meeting at my son's school. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that many people to be here while I was doing this morning because, it's the morning for a lot of people. But, the world's a big place and other people have other time zones. Got a meeting at my son's school. I need to explain why he hates it and thinks it's boring. Dude, take him out of school, homeschool him. Let his kids stuck in school, in boring schools, is just destroying their imagination. Take them out, get them. Anything is better than that. Don't let their imagination get destroyed. Take them out and homeschool them. Let's see. I will cover my houseboat in mirrors so that from the shore it will just look like more water and sky. If you cover your boat in mirrors, it might look like this blinding bright thing every once in a while when the sun's in the right spot. But yeah, that would be pretty funny. Oblivious is bliss. Yeah, ignorance is bliss. Yeah. The thing is, like, ignorance is great temporarily, but eventually you just start getting walked on. You don't know why. Like, I would always rather take the truth, regardless of how unsavory it is, over ignorance. And there are a lot of times in my life when I've been like, no, just tell me the truth to someone. And they're like, well, I mean, I'm like, no, just tell me the truth. Just effing tell me the effing truth. Because that's more important than any of this feeling stuff or whatever. Because if I don't have the truth, I don't like, there's no point in going around in some fantasy world when you're in the real world, because it's not going to match up. This is honesty, another adventure builder principle and virtue. Honesty. You gotta have a good grasp on what's going on in the real world, so you can do things in the real world. Because if you don't understand what's really going on, then you're kind of crippled, you're disabled, It's sort of like missing a leg, except you're missing a piece of your mind. Oh, and I've been talking about all this exercise and stuff lately. And one of the questions I'm sure someone's going to ask, and someone may have already asked, and I didn't notice, is, what do you do if you're disabled? Okay, or if you're just like fat, or if you're super out of shape, or if it doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. Or if you're old or whatever, your starting point can be anywhere. You can start anywhere and improve. And you may be at a point in your life where you're so old that you're just declining regardless. And maybe the best you can do is just, kind of maintain whatever, and obviously at some point you just say, well, I'm basically going to die soon, so let me just chill for a week before I croak or whatever. But like, before you get to that point, like anywhere you are on the spectrum of capabilities, you can do something to improve yourself, So don't worry if you've got something holding you back. You'll love Diablo 2. I don't know. I can't get into a video game. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it. I mean, I do play games once in a while. Jerry Rigs Everything is using a big drainage tube, like 16-foot diameter, for a bunker. Oh, that's cool. I would love to get one of those giant drainage tubes. Oh man, if I could the thing is, I'm on an island, so there's definitely a limit to what I could get here. Like I couldn't just get a shipping container dropped off by a truck or something, or, you know, I've seen, you know, those big concrete tubes. If I could get a bunch of those, I'd love to have some of those. But yeah, anyway. Let's see, Jaimie, I think that climate doomerism is irresponsible and not fair to children. Just because the climate is changing doesn't mean we're all doomed. True, totally. Yeah, climate. Yeah, that whole climate thing. It's I don't know. It's weird, and it's impossible to like unless you actually have some connection to like the actual information. Like unless you're directly involved, it's like impossible to find out. Like what's really going to happen here? You know, do I need to be prepared for the ocean to rise really soon, or is it going to be cool and everything's fine, or like I don't know. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and yeah, all that doomerism stuff. Like as long as we're still going, just keep going and do your best. And there's always something that can come and screw everything up. There's no way around that. There's always something that can screw things up, so don't worry about it too much. I played Ultima on my Commodore 64 back in the 80s. Fun times, yeah. Oh, I remember Commodore 64. I didn't have one, but I had a friend who had one. There are a lot of free pallets offered in my area. What are some important things to keep in mind when working with free pallet wood? I don't know. Well, I mean, the first thing I think of is just make sure there's no chemicals on it. Like, particularly if you're like cutting them up inside your house or like in a workshop and like inside somewhere. But I mean, otherwise, don't cut yourself on the nail. Yeah, don't take any boards off and put them down and leave the nails in them because you might step on it. I don't know. Use it. Sounds great. Yeah, if you can get free material, go for it. Some pallets are chemically treated. Oh, okay, that's what I was just talking about. Some are heat treated and use the heat treated. Yeah, so he's saying use the heat treated pallets, not the chemically treated pallets. I'm going to put giant mirrors on my ship and focus them and destroy the baddies. Have fun storming the castle. What castle? I must have missed something. All right, I think I'm gonna go, I don't know, make some breakfast or something. Should I take off my weights? Usually on Mondays and Tuesdays, I do my morning exercises with weights on. And then I often just leave them on for like most of the day while I'm out digging and stuff. Anyway, the end, Edward says. That sounds like an excellent the end. All right, I'll catch you guys later.